SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
Back here, man, it's been a whirlwind week. Brief trip down to the beautiful Mississippi Gulf Coast yesterday, hosting MidDays at the Aerospace and Defense Symposium. Bunch of smart people down there, Rhino. That was a lot of fun, wasn't it? What about the rocket guy? That was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That was neat. So, one thing I didn't ask him, and perhaps you can unravel the mystery here. What exactly is a neutron rocket? Does that mean it's atomic powered? What does that mean?
If I'm not mistaken, they're talking about propulsion once you get into space.
Okay. Gotcha.
Because it requires much less force to start moving in the vacuum of space.
Yes.
And you can kind of build up slowly to a really high speed. So if we were going to send explorative satellites or technology to the outskirts of the solar system or out of the solar system, those would likely be the way to go.
Yeah.
Because they seem to be more feasible with current technology than solar sails are at this point. Although I still think solar sails are the end goal of simple, or not, I guess not simple, that's not the right word, but less volatile rocketry.
Okay. So, of course, the need for less propulsion is due to the fact that you ain't got to worry about that gravity as much, right? So you're kind of free floating. But were you a little surprised? I know you sort of keep up with this, and I do too, but I'll have to admit, I'm not current. What did he say? 11,000? Did he say that on the air, or did he say that off the air? I can't remember. He and I talked a bit on the break. 11,000 satellites currently orbiting the Earth at low orbit levels, altitudes. 11,000.
Oh, I was way off. Apparently Neutron is their reusable orbital launcher.
Oh, wow.
That's the name of their SpaceX competitor.
Oh, cool. All right, so I get it. So are we witnessing a bit of a space race here within the country? It appears, doesn't it? Because Elon Musk is betting the farm on SpaceX and Optimus robot, right? He's made that clear. Of course, they're mostly known, Musk is, Tesla and autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, somewhat autonomous, more so than many other manufacturers. It really kind of made the electric vehicle mainstream, I think you could argue. To the extent that it is mainstream, I mean, it's a fraction of the market, but generally speaking, when you think about EVs, you think Tesla first. We've seen the domestic manufacturers pull back their EV efforts considerably. In fact, a couple of days ago, GM had a blowout quarter. The market reacted. I don't think I've ever seen GM stock. When's the last time it rose like that? Like the 40s or the 50s or something? But one of the things that was noted in their report to the street was that they had sort of absorbed all the expense associated with their EV efforts. And this is where, you can't ignore the political angle of this. This is what happens when you get an administration, a president, a party in charge that says, we're going to kill those fossil fuels. We're not using those anymore. And I know I brought that up on the show before, but you remember the interview, Joe Biden, back in the 2020 election cycle. Remember that sit down he had with an individual in a wheelchair that spoke through electronic systems? I don't exactly know how that technology works, but he personally couldn't speak from his voice, his natural voice. But maybe
usually it's eye tracking nowadays.
I couldn't recall if it was eye tracking or if he was writing. It was going pretty fast. But you remember one of the questions was, direct question was, are you going to end the use of fossil fuels in this country? And Goofy Biden, if this just isn't exemplary of politicians saying whatever the hell they got to say to the current audience to get vote or votes. Yes, we're going to kill them. Remember that? Okay, right. Then we're all going to die if you do that. But the point I'm making is when your government, the rhetoric can often be as influential as the policy. And when you got rhetoric coming out from the president that says, we're killing fossil fuels and we're going to give you all these tax breaks if you buy these EVs, and we're changing policy without anything coming out of Congress. This is where I get upset about the deep state bureaucracy with these career bureaucrats, faceless career bureaucrats that implement these goofy policies. Well, GM, Ford, all the domestic manufacturers invest mightily in the creation and the development of EV vehicles, and then they find out, wait, the market doesn't want these dang things. Remember the projections for the electric Ford F-150, which I think at one time, right, was one of the best-selling vehicles in the world, certainly here in America, and it disappointed in terms of the sales production.
The freaking Super Bowl ad for it was like the power goes out and the truck kicks on and the house comes back on and everything's powered. And it's like, oh, well, that would be cool. And then you actually plug it in. It's like, yeah, you got about an hour of the whole house running.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But they've pulled back considerably. And I just think it's notable. I don't know if folks paid attention to this or not, but as part of their quarterly report, GM says, yeah, we think we've just about absorbed this boondoggle of massive investment in EV production. We're cutting all that out. We think we've absorbed it. By the way, our regular internal combustion powered vehicles, they're selling pretty good. And so their stock rose as a result of that report and their guidance as well. But I couldn't help but think about, man, how far we've come in a short period of time. We went from we're killing fossil fuels to now we got, I think, the largest domestic manufacturer of vehicles, General Motors, saying, yeah, that didn't work out too well. We're getting out of that business. It's amazing how powerful the market is, it turns out. You make something the market responds positively to, you'll sell enough of them. But if it's done through government mandate edict, that crap never works, which is exactly why the ACA premium enhanced subsidies is the boondoggle of all times that honestly has got the whole damn government shut down. So they tried again, right? Even tried to fund some of the so-called essential payrolls. Couldn't get that through either. So we're here on day 24. We don't have too many days, and this will be the longest shutdown. I say we're going to get there. 35. This is the second longest. 35 is the record. We're at 24. We don't have many to go, and we'll be eclipsing the old record. I just don't see any breakthrough on this. And, nobody really talks about, and you I know, have been a very vocal, outspoken opponent, as have I and many others, of the ACA that, of course, purported.
It's been a pile of crap since it got passed. It was a pile of crap before it got passed, but it wasn't dangerous until it got passed.
Totally true. And on the other side of the break, I'll share some ideas that I have. First, I'm going to talk about these are the provisions that have driven up the cost of health care coverage in this country. Your favorite one of all is that you have to pay for OBGYN service. Hey, don't tell the Democrats you can't get pregnant because they'll attempt to refute.
Yeah, I'll never be in the stirrups, but by God, I got to pay for it.
Well, all right, we're stepping aside for a break. It's J.T. Mitchell, our news director, at 11:20, and then at 12:05, Leah Smith, General Counsel and VP for Policy and Advocacy with the Mississippi Hospital Association. Well, that's a timely topic to discuss today with the ACA subsidies on the line that's got the government shut down. Stay with us. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
We're rolling. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
awesome. On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Walking through a party in the county jail. The prison band was there and they began to wail. The band was jumping and the joint began to swing. You should have heard this knocked out jailbird sing. Let it rock. Everybody let it rock. Everybody in old cell block was dancing to the jailhouse rock. Spider Murphy played his inner saxophone. Little Joe was blowing on the slide trombone.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, SuperTalk Mississippi. So we were just talking about what's got the government shut down is a little squabble over extension of the enhanced ACA subsidies. And this is one of those things where I know that on paper all this looks great, but when you implement it and put it into practice, it starts to fall apart. In the IT world, we used to call that design bust. You know, you would have these great plans, and we'd all spend an enormous amount of time, really smart people, developing precise plans for systems design. It could be hardware, software, combination. And then you get in the middle of it, say, uh-oh, design bust. We didn't think about this. We didn't think about that. But anytime government inserts itself so strenuously as it did in this particular area, one that affects everyone in the country, you know that there are flaws. And one of those, in the thing that drove premiums up more than anything, are these specific, explicit insurance reforms in the so-called Affordable Care Act. One of those, your favorite, is called minimum essential coverage, MEC for short. Basically says, hey, insurers, it doesn't matter what the market wants. You got to sell policies that include this because we got to protect the people from those junk plans. Remember that? Saying it over and over and over. And the people were saying, like Rhino, but I'm okay with the junk plan. I'm fine with that. If that doesn't work out, we'll figure something else out. Unlikely it won't work out. You know, the other component of the plan that actually was a decent idea, many people probably don't remember this, was the high-risk pools. Remember that? And there was money for that, like $2 billion or something. And the bottom line is, what you're doing is you're taking the risk and the pressure off of the insurers and these mandates that everybody's got to have insurance, so the insurance companies in the same pool that healthy folks are part of and buying insurance, you got really seriously ill people that are very costly. And you want to take care of them, very costly to take care of. So this idea was, well, let's put them in these high-risk pools and kind of spread and distribute that risk, because you know this, Rhino, the bottom line is healthy people that don't use much medical services pay for the coverage provided, the services, I should say, provided to ill people. Now, sometimes it's self-inflicted based on your lifestyle. Sometimes you didn't have a say in the matter. It just gets passed down in your DNA and things happen. Now, it's a good news, bad news. The good news is we keep inventing all kinds of new treatments, new procedures, new drugs, new therapies. Everybody wants them naturally. They want to be healthy, want to live longer. Problem is it all costs money. And so the way to mitigate the people that are more inclined to get ill or born with conditions or have contracted expensive conditions to treat, separate them out. That was the idea. You remember this, though. It lasted about 2 years. It was completely flawed in its design. We should bring that back. And we should cover those people in those high-risk pools and more evenly distribute that cost so that folks that don't have quite as much need can all buy insurance in a pool where it's more equitable as far as what you pay in and what is used out. But I
got a better idea. Just repeal it and go back to what it was before.
Yeah, and I'd be okay with that too.
Allow insurance companies to sell young people catastrophic plans so they're not paying through the nose to try to get a start.
So you know this, and that was the other thing I was going to bring up. There's this concept known as community rating. And all that really means, and it's insurance parlance, if you will, that basically says, hey, older, sick people, including this, heaven forbid, females, right? In community rating, females pay a little more for their coverage than males, naturally, because they're at higher risk of using health care services. You know why? Because they might get pregnant.
Because indoor plumbing's more complicated than outdoor plumbing.
Absolutely. But think about this. Wasn't too long ago, you and I on the show were marveling at the American Medical Association that wanted to, end instruction in our medical schools that differentiates between that plumbing. Oh, you can't do that because, exactly. Am I telling the truth there? They absolutely wanted to say, oh, no, we can't teach the distinctions biologically between males and females. Well, what's next? We just eliminate OBGYNs? We don't need those anymore because that really doesn't exist? That's like a myth? This is all part of this DEI garbage, this radical gender ideology. They were encouraging medical schools in this country, just stop teaching people how to treat women differently than men. Is that insane? This is why you'll have a hard time finding anybody that has any leaning to the right who is a physician, who's a member of that organization. But this is an example of the things that drive premiums up. Now, there are a couple of other reforms that were enacted in the ACA, and these are the two that made premiums go up maybe more than any other provision. And what I'm about to discuss here is something that most people, even on the right, appreciate and like, and that's where it gets dicey. And it's this. Before the ACA, returning to the sorts of plans you're talking about, you know that you could buy coverage that had an annual limit and a lifetime limit. This is the maximum amount the insurance is ever going to pay. You're on your own. You get past, you have some catastrophic medical issue, and you hit the $50,000 a year mark, the insurance company says, okay, you're on your own, right? That's the way it used to be. And now you can't do that. You cannot sell coverage. So when you go to the insurance company and say, hey, guys, you don't have any limit here. You could pay through the nose in a year and on a lifetime basis. Well, they say, well, we're going to raise the premiums. Well, sure, because they got more financial risk. So that's one. And the other is there's a maximum out-of-pocket cost. Maximum out-of-pocket cost. I think now, Rhino, it's risen because it's adjusted for inflation. It's what, like $10,000, $12,000, $9,000, $10,000? Look me up on that. Meaning your co-pays, your deductibles, there's another category of out-of-pocket costs. Co-pays, deductible, co-insurance. So it's limited.
$9,200 for an individual, $18,000 for family.
It's double, right. So before that, you could buy coverage where you had a really high deductible or there was no imposition of limits on out-of-pocket costs. You could buy coverage. I'll take that risk. Push my premiums down. I'll take the risk that I'm on the hook for out-of-pocket costs at a higher level. And the insurance company, sure, okay, well, your premiums are cheaper. But the government says, no, insurers, you can't sell that. And they said, well, hell, we got to go up on the premiums. These are the provisions. Now, you talk to people on the right, because I have, and they say, well,
They also said we're going up on the premiums because the government's telling everybody you got to buy our stuff.
That's absolutely right. And in fact, the reality is the insurance industry.
They were doing the calculus between the thousands of dollars in penalties you would be charged if you refused and what they could charge you.
Right.
That's exactly what they were doing.
Oh, and they were encouraging. Imagine if Congress enacted a law that said you got to buy radio advertising. Similar deal. We wouldn't be able to talk, right? Everybody would be eating up all air. It's a similar deal. When the Congress says, hey, you got to buy these guys' product. That's exactly what happened here with the mandate. And in fact, they, being the insurance industry, were upset because they thought the penalties were too light.
Yeah, because the higher it went, the more they could charge.
Exactly. They wanted the penalties to be more onerous to make sure that nobody said, yeah, I'm not going to buy insurance. I'll just pay the penalty, the mandate penalty. Now, that's since all been repealed. It was repealed in 2017, pardon me. But nonetheless, those are some of the things that drove premiums up, and that's government. And then the other big one was the can't deny people for pre-existing conditions. Now, even Republicans say, yeah, we got to keep that. Okay, well then understand premiums are going to be higher as a result of that. We're stepping aside for a break, coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the Seabrook.com.
Attention, adoring fans! It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. There behind the glass stands a real blade of grass. Be careful as you pass. Move along, move along. Come inside, the show's about to start. Guaranteed to blow your head apart. Rest assured, don't get your money's worth. With this show, it happened all right. You gotta see the show. It's about to move. You gotta see the show. It's rock and roll. Oh, right before your eyes, people laughter from the skies, and he laughs until he cries.
Well, we're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget Turning Point USA, the conservative advocacy group founded by the late Charlie Kirk. They're going to be at Ole Miss next Wednesday. And Vice President J.D. Vance and Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, will be on campus and are scheduled to speak. Mornings with Richard Cross will also be on campus broadcasting that morning to tell you about everything happening for one of the biggest political events of the year. 6,000 attended the Turning Point USA event at the University of Oklahoma a week ago. 6,000 students. 6,000 students. I think we're going to see a bigger crowd up at Ole Miss for the Turning Point USA event with the vice president coming into town. Something else I caught wind of as well, Rhino, is that there have been a sharp increase in the sale of Bibles. 36% is the figure being reported since the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk. It feels like there's a wave of enthusiasm and embracement of conservative Christian principles amongst our young folks in this country. And we would be remiss if we didn't ascribe a great deal of that wave to the late, great Charlie Kirk. That message resonated. He did it in a way that I think was really received well and positively by our young people across college campuses, just by being respectful and courteous and not your typical leftist Karen that has to strew pejoratives, insults, and F-bombs, it's every other words, into their statements. He just was very calm, matter-of-fact, collected, respectful. This is just the old civil discourse, not activist hysterics, which is the way the left comports itself. Just has to shout you down, get in your face, poke you in the eye. It's the only way they can communicate. I happen to believe it's because they themselves don't even believe in the garbage they're spewing. And so I think the natural human approach is, well, let me just shout them down. That'll do it, right? That'll make it look like I'm really all about this. Of course, half the time they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Oh, my gosh.
They're just regurgitating whatever they've been spoon-fed to be upset about for that 24-hour period.
That's exactly right. Here, go get mad about that. Here's a sign and $5, right? Oh, my gosh. Google, their quantum computer, their Willow chip. We first reported this, you remember, about this time last year, as I recall, right? When they had a major breakthrough with the Willow chip. I think it was November of 24. And what you and I were astonished about was comparison of the quantum chip, the Willow chip's ability to complete certain processing instructions in a short period of time that would take the traditional supercomputer, such as a Cray, what was it, 10 septillion years? And you observe, wow, the universe hadn't been around that long, so that opens up all kinds of crazy possibilities when you think about extending beyond the boundaries of the universe. Well, a couple of days ago, they announced another major leap. They say that their quantum algorithm runs 13,000 times as fast as software written for a traditional supercomputer. Not a traditional computer, a traditional supercomputer. I tell you, I feel like we're getting closer. I feel like that the time frame to get to practical use applications value derived from quantum computing is being accelerated, is moving up. I thought maybe 10, 15 years, and many analysts said that over the last year. But now you've seen they're changing their tune, saying maybe it's 5 to 7. We start seeing real, tangible benefit from quantum computing. And maybe the easiest way, Rhino, to describe quantum computing, most people are familiar with the traditional bit, the lowest unit digitally that makes up our data. Used by our software, our systems, and so forth. It's got two positions, on and off, 1 and 0. So think about a light switch. You got an on and off. Well, think about a light switch with a dimmer. That's really what a qubit is. It's the same as a bit, except it's not just 1 or 0. It's an infinite, essentially, number of states from the dimmer slide or the dimmer switch, whatever it's like. That's kind of the best way I could describe it. You may think of something different, but when you have these ability to have multiple states with the same digital unit, the possibilities are endless, and of course the amount of time required to complete certain processes, calculations, etc., is shrunk by orders of magnitude that you can't even comprehend.
One analogy I've seen was comparing it to video games.
Okay.
So like if classical computing with bits, with 1s and 0s on and off, that's like your Atari. with a joystick and a single button.
Yeah.
Or the button on the joystick and the other button. So you get 2 buttons. Compared to modern video games where the controller has 16 buttons, 16 different inputs through the same processor. So it's much more available input for the calculation than just the old Atari.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. Totally true. So it's just a natural evolution of the technology. Now, the concept of quantum computing and qubits, I want to say that goes back to the 80s, actually. Just the thinking about that and how to create and develop that. I may be off a little bit, but I want to say it goes back to like the...
Yeah, it was Feynman proposing it in the early 80s.
Okay, yeah. Berkeley, seems like that's where most of that stuff came from back then. There's a bunch of left-wing loons at the University of California, Berkeley, but you can't deny that a whole bunch of technology came out of that place. That and Stanford, it's just so sad to see it overrun by leftist wackos. But lots of good things came out. Now, look, the people that were working on this sort of stuff, they were more worried about technology and science than they're being a political activist. They were just surrounded by them, honestly, and which is a problem on our college campuses we've talked about so many times, period. Just extending that discussion, you guys have probably seen that ExxonMobil's considering building a power plant and data center. I'm not so sure they will actually build a data center. Maybe the shell of it itself, but won't operate it. I think they're looking at partnering with a third party. This is in Yazoo County, Mississippi, a small county population-wise that kind of starts the Delta, you could argue. And this could be a project worth up to $30 billion. Well, once again, I'm seeing on social media so many people complaining about this. You've seen this, right? So I got to tell you guys, I know that there's a kind of a pervasive attitude out there that we just got to stop all this data center stuff. We got to stop all this artificial intelligence. And I understand there's some concerns. Now, most of those, I happen to believe, are grossly overblown. But here's what I'd like to say about this. If we don't maintain superiority in artificial intelligence and in quantum computing, we will essentially cede the high ground of the technical stack to people that want to wipe us off the planet. And we will be buying everything from them if we lose our position of technical superiority, and they'll be telling us how to run our country. That's what will happen. We really don't have a choice in the matter. This is a matter of national security. It's a matter of preservation of the republic. I know that's hard to wrap your head around, and you may think I'm way out there on this, but I don't think people realize how powerful quantum computing could be. You and I have discussed that. They perfect that. You break down all our cybersecurity protections in a matter of seconds. Then what happens? Oh, no power, no banks, no economy. And it's, hey, guys, you either give in to us or you're going to die, not from guns, but because everything comes to a halt. I'm not talking about government bureaucrats not showing up, such as a government shutdown. I'm talking about no banks, no power, no health care, no food. That's what will happen. And if you're so serious about stopping this, well, get off the internet. Quit using those tools and systems to make your point. You're the one that's making it go. Coming right back.
Hey, this is...
Come on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
My daddy spent his life looking up at the sky. He cussed, kicked the dust, saying, son, it's way too dry. The clouds up in the city, the weatherman complains. But where I come from, rain is a good thing. Rain makes corn
We're back with you in the Element Wealth Studios, so thank you so much for joining us today in a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar. Today you'll hear part 2 of an interview with author, judge, restaurant owner, and farmer Stafford Sheridan. So go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. So join the conversation on Middays by texting us on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Your money's looking pretty good today. That funny money's been a little volatile lately. What is it? In the teens today, isn't it, Rhino?
Let's see. The funny money is sitting at $110,000.
Okay, so little out of the teen range there. But what did you tell me a couple of days ago? It hit 125, I think, right? And it has pulled back since then. But the Dow on fire. The Dow is up 570 right now. Got to like that. You'll want to check your retirement accounts and your investment accounts for sure. The NASDAQ also in positive territory. Last I checked, it was up nearly 200 points. 275 now. The Russell 2000, the S&P also trending nicely. The 10-year yield sitting right at 4%. That's a good thing. That's also driving the equities higher today. And the big news that's driving two things. One is very positive earnings reports throughout the week from a number of companies across a cross-section of industries, including, like we talked about yesterday, many of the more traditional legacy industrial issues, such as autos and oil, energy and banking. All those are looking nice. Healthcare. We're so accustomed to these big run-ups being driven by the Mag 7. There are 493 other issues in the S&P 500. So inflation, we got a report on that this morning. It remained above the Fed's target in September ahead of a rate cut decision, but investors are still optimistic we're going to see a rate cut. So the inflation came in at 3%. 3% on an annual basis, up by 0.3% month over month, 0.3. So we're not seeing a pullback. And again, we don't want to see deflation. Deflation means that prices are actually reversing. And I'm not talking about for the volatile food and energy prices, but cost of other goods and services. When you see that, that means the economy is really tanking and a bunch of people are about to lose their job. In other words, you're going into a recession. That's what causes deflation. What we want is a moderation of inflation, to put it in its sort of normal range, and that historically has been set by economists, by the Fed, analysts, investors at 2%. So we're at 3%. That's hotter than we want it to be. And that's driven by a number of factors. Tariffs are certainly one of those. I think labor, we continue to see an increase in wages. That's also driving inflation. Food prices up 0.2%, 3.1% year over year. So your food's up. You've probably noticed that the price at the pump has come down, but I'm concerned about that because of these sanctions on Russia. I think the president's trying to break that cycle of war over there by imposing those sanctions, but that does cause, on the two big Russian oil companies, that's what he did. I don't necessarily disagree with that policy, but we have to accept that does take some oil off the market. That causes crude to go up. So we saw it dip below $60 a couple of weeks ago, down in the $57 range. Today it's up to $65, going in the wrong direction there. Egg prices did decline 4.7% on a monthly basis, down 1.3% over the year. Fruits and vegetables flat, up 1.3% year over year. So that's where we are on the inflation picture, but investors still are optimistic and feeling like the Fed is going to cut rates. They like that. But most importantly, corporations are doing well, and profits are the mother's milk of stocks. I know the left in this country wants to outlaw and ban profits. Can't do that. So, let's see. Now, somebody said that they're concerned about, if I can find it. Oh, yeah, on TV says, we're scared of the growth. Jerry in Waynesboro will lead to what we see on TV. He says, with growth comes money, lots of money, then the trash follows, then the riots. Look at California. No, that's not true. That's just not true. I promise you, Jerry, it's possible to achieve economic growth without all of that baggage. And I don't think the reason California is overrun with illegals and all the tent cities and stuff is because their government said, hey, come on in, we'll take care of you. That's the problem there. We're not going to do that in Mississippi, and that's not happening to a great extent in the rest of the country. Fox News, SuperTalk News next. Stay with us.
Your of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 2 of Middays. We are live in the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday, y'all.
So the Dow, I just saw, came across with a Chiron on the Business Channel, said, yeah, the markets still feel rosy about getting a rate cut, and that's why they're boosting stocks today. Look, there's a bunch of money still on the sidelines that when it pours into the markets, that's what you see. So this is great. It's a great time to be an American. It's a great time to be a Mississippian, and we should celebrate that. The president is mad at Canada because they're mad at tariffs. He called off the talks with them because they're replaying a video from Ronald Reagan where Reagan, not a fan of tariffs. And the president's not happy about that, and so he called it off. You were going to say something about that. So,
they selectively edited a speech by Reagan.
They did. They absolutely did. And he noted that. He called it fake. But, we'll see where all this goes. There are some who benefit from the tariffs and some who are harmed by them. I think ultimately this will all settle back. And we'll get to a point of equilibrium and put this behind us. I am still concerned that many companies, American companies, who are absorbing the cost of tariffs at this point, not going to do that permanently, and you're going to start seeing them pass that on to consumers. So we'll see that. We'll see where that goes. Now, even though inflation came in at 3%, which is above the Fed target and probably more than people want to see, it was less than expected. And that's also part of the enthusiasm driving the bulls into the market. So less than expected. Government debt hit $38 trillion. That happened yesterday after the fastest accumulation of $1 trillion outside of the pandemic. Now, I've said this before on the show. I do not believe that we will ever pay a dime on the debt. I think we just have to get accustomed to it and manage it. And the consequences of it are inflation. So I know a lot of people say, well, one day the cows are going to come home. We're going to have to pay. No, we won't. Never. Never a dime. That's my opinion. Now, again, how does it cause inflation? Because that means the government's overspending and it's injecting money into the economy. As long as productivity counters that, which is being driven by the stuff that people are mad about, artificial intelligence and technology and quantum computing. And we haven't even begun to receive the benefits of that yet. As long as that's happening it does offset the negative effect. Where you have a problem, and this is not a statement in favor of deficit spending. Lord knows I've spent enough time on this program talking about that. I'm just saying that the consequence of the debt, it's not that one day we're going to all have to reach into our pocket and pay it back. No, it's not going to happen because we owe ourselves, by the way. Contrary to popular belief that we owe China, no, we don't. $700 billion of $38 trillion. That's what we owe China. And they've been shrinking their holdings of American debt. Two things could happen. One is hyperinflation because productivity, meaning the goods and services produced by our country on a per capita basis, aren't keeping up with the money being infused into the economy. That's inflationary. Second thing is the folks who buy our debt say, it's getting a little frothy here, right? And we had a little scare on that not too long ago, and that's what caused a market sell-off, and that's when the Fed came out pretty nervous. Even the president was a little spooked by that. When folks say, wait, the auctions for our debt aren't going well, we can't sell it, or we're having to offer much more attractive yields to sell it. That means investors think it's more risky because the least risk, the lowest risk asset arguably on the planet are American treasuries because this country has never, ever defaulted on payment of its debt, and it won't. Now, sure, you may say, well, that's because the Treasury can just, not the Treasury actually, the Fed orders the Treasury to keep printing money. Right, and that's inflationary. But if productivity is offsetting that, it does tend to hold the line and restrain inflation. Thomas in Greenwood says inflation will continue to keep us poor and lower out our quality of life. Right, except we're not experiencing that, Thomas, and the quality of life continues to improve in this country. That's because of productivity, which is largely driven by human innovation. Simple as that. So I ask you folks that I know you're opposed to all this data center build out, all this implementation of artificial intelligence, this pursuit and development of quantum computing. If we stop that, first, China will own us because they're in a race with us. They will absolutely own us. I'm not kidding about that. He who owns the high ground of AI and quantum computing will dominate the planet. It was a time when whoever's got the most ships, the most bombs, right, the most aircraft, that's who dominates. And this country held that distinction, that status, for a long time. And I remember in the 70s vividly, and I know folks out there remember this, my age, we were all kind of worried about the arms race with Russia. Ronald Reagan came in and broke it. He broke them by investing heavily in our armed forces because Carter, like Biden and most Democrats, military, we don't really need that, right? They never have regarded that as a necessity. I'm talking about the more modern Democrats. I'm not referring to Democrats prior to them, but it felt like Carter, he discounted it, and he did. He decimated the military. Obama did. The president said that in his first term. We've got to rebuild the military. But future wars won't be fought with planes and tanks and bombs and ships, in my view. I'm not saying they're not a part of the...
they will. They just won't be in the first volley.
Agree. Correct. That'll be the response. They'll be used for the response. And then you get concerned about, well, how will technology mitigate that response from conventional, traditional weapons? But let's be honest. Even our ships, our planes, our bombs, guess what they're using? Artificial intelligence. Because if you can't, you're going to get beat by the enemy who has infused that technology into all those more traditional, conventional armaments.
I mean, that's one of the most recent publicly announced upgrades for the F-35 was to turn it into an AI mothership with AI drone wingmen flying around it to basically provide anything up to flanking fire or to sacrifice the drones to protect the plane.
It's unbelievable. So the best is yet to come. I absolutely believe that. So we have to embrace it. And there's way more benefit in this evolution. I think it's a new renaissance, honestly. then there are drawbacks and downsides. It has to be done responsibly, methodically, thoughtfully. Absolutely. All the above. Agree. So, no, Thomas, that's not right. Investing heavily, that's a neat way to say he grew the debt more than all previous presidents combined. We've pointed that out here. You got Trump derangement syndrome, I feel like, man.
That's Reagan derangement syndrome.
Oh, okay, you're right.
He hates Reagan.
Okay, you're right. That statement was about Reagan. Absolutely right. So, one thing that folks fail to consider when they talk about debt, they only focus on the right side of the balance sheet. Those of you that are familiar with the presentation of a balance sheet, you've got assets on the left. I mean, this is high school accounting. And on the right, you got liabilities and equity. I don't feel like that a lot of people that complain about this stuff all the time ever think about the asset side of the balance sheet. I can tell you, you go to Wall Street, I've done it, to raise money. That is a huge metric that is considered in investments, both debt and equity investments, and that's the left side of the balance sheet, the asset side of the balance sheet. You can't ignore that. Well, look at all the debt, right? But look at the assets that we have as well. You can't just discount that and just put it out of mind. You absolutely have to consider it. And this country is blessed with enormous assets. Actually, the latest count, the latest valuation, $249 trillion worth of assets in this country. We, relative to the other countries, are incredibly wealthy. And guess what created that? The very system that the Democrats in this country want to eliminate and eradicate. It's called capitalism. And when it is allowed to flourish, great things happen. And that's why we're sitting in this studio having this conversation. It's not possible without that. We're coming right back with J.T. Mitchell, our news director.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite! On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Trucking, got my chips cashed in, keep trucking, like the Doodah Man together.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays. We are in the Element Well studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now J.T. Mitchell, News Director, SuperTalk Mississippi News. All right, what about it there, J.T.?
Hey, Gerard, how are you?
Well, I know you guys have been busy, man. Your team doing a great job, been humping it because there's a bunch of news to cover across the state. Of course, to some extent, you guys dip into the national scene as well. So we got elections coming up. We got offices that are up for grabs here in a couple of weeks. A lot of attention on that. And also we got voting kicking off as well. We want to make sure that folks know about that.
I mean, I appreciate you saying that because if we hit the reset button here for a minute, honestly, Gerard, the last month has been one of the harshest news cycles, I think, since 2020. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
I mean, you think back to 2020, you had a pandemic. You had the Black Lives Matter movement. You had our politicians in the legislature. They leave, they come back, etc. They then changed the flag, medical marijuana. It was fast and furious then. I think the past month can be, it's similar to that with everything we've been covering. Unfortunately, a lot of it's been bad news. Politics are heating up as well. But it's been a lot, so I want to give a big shout-out to my team because it's not easy being a journalist.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people out there, they like to rip at journalists sometimes. But at the end of the day, most journalists have the same intention, and that's to give people the information they need to know and to let people know if something's happening in their neighborhood. And that's why we come to work.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean it, too. Your team does a great job, and I know that you're constantly dumping on them. You got to go get to this, get to that, because it's happening in a second. We can't control that.
No, we can't. And it's not like back in the day. I guess you can thank O.J. Simpson. It's not a 9 to 5 news cycle, right? It is 24/7, and so we're pushing it all the time to make sure everybody out there knows what's happening.
Sure.
Whether you have a criminal in your neighborhood, a hurricane coming toward your house, that's what we're here for. And so we're on over 50 talk music affiliate stations across the state. We put everything in written format as well at SuperTalk.fm. So thank you to everybody out there who consumes us. But back to our regular scheduled programming.
One quick plug, sign up for the newsletter.
Because
I enjoy that. It comes out every Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great synopsis of all the headlines from the week, and boom, easy to drill down and get to the important news that's occurred over the last week. Sign up for that. How can they do that?
Just go to supertalk.fm. There's a ton of plugins on the website. You just put your email address in, and you'll be good to go.
Absolutely. All right, what's happening?
Well, one thing I've been thinking about this week is we are now 3.5 months since the municipal elections in June, the general at least. And, on the campaign trail, a lot of people, they say a lot of things, right? And then they get in office and it either pans out or it doesn't. I'm happy to report that based on everyone I talk to across the state, most of the new mayors are doing a really good job. Down in Long Beach, I've heard great things from Tim Pierce. Gulfport, the same from Hugh Keating. Mm-hmm. Holly Springs, you're seeing Charles Terry. You've had Chris Brown come on, the commissioner with the Public Service Commission, and say they're actually working with us now to try to get this utility issue fixed. So good stuff all around. This week, we covered the State of the City address in Jackson with John Horn, and I thought it was great. I really did. I thought that Mayor Horn did a beautiful job of conveying that they're doing a lot that might not meet the naked eye, because you have to return to the basics first before a lot of stuff is really noticeable. And he covered a lot. He spoke for about 34 minutes, and he talked about everything from his relationships that he's already working to get some outcomes. I mean, he's flown up to D.C. They're already talking about getting more money to Jackson Water, getting it reallocated. That would actually be part of the continuing resolution if this passes. He's worked with suburbs, with other governments, with the Hinds County Board of Supervisors, the City Council, to get more money for infrastructure improvements. They've created a task force for just about everything, addressing homelessness, holding landlords accountable. They're in the midst of a nationwide police chief search. This one you'll find really interesting, that he broke this news during the State of the City address. For the first time ever, there is an employee from the Mississippi Development Authority on staff in Jackson, working to try to bring economic development to the capital city.
So desperately needed.
And a lot of this seems like it might be common sense, but the reason it's happening now is because people trust Mayor Horn. Everybody I talk to in government, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever, they like his vision. So he's doing a lot. One program he touted, which will have a tremendous impact, is he got a nonprofit. You go back to relationships. He worked with a nonprofit to allocate $1 million. Every single mother that's single living in public housing in Jackson can apply, guaranteed $1,000 a month for them. There's no catch, and it's supposed to help them pay down debt, maybe continue education, and get them and their kids out of poverty.
Came from a nonprofit.
Yes.
Right. So not from the government, the city's coffers. Came from a nonprofit.
And that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's trying
leveraging
to work
those. Well,
with
he's built relationships as a senator for 3 decades.
And that's Magnolia Mothers Trust. And she was actually on the cover of Time magazine this time last year for this. There are other nonprofits in the nation that saw what she's doing and said, we need to do that.
Yeah.
So some good stuff going on in Jackson and other parts of the state with new mayors.
That's awesome. Well, I saw him the other day at an event and appreciate him attending that. It's a Catholic Charities event, and spent some time with him talking about it. And he was talking about the leak that had just happened at a museum. They just discovered. I know there's a leak at the zoo. You talked about that in your article. But this just occurred the night before. And so every day he's getting hit with surprises. But I think that's largely because his predecessor just didn't seem to be interested in tackling the really core foundational problems, and this Mayor Horn now is. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely correct, and he's done a great job reconnecting with neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Because if all of your neighborhoods are working on the same cylinder, the city will do great.
Totally.
And so he's been connecting with different neighborhoods across the state. He's actually invited every single neighborhood to meet with his office about what they want to see in a police chief. I'd never heard of that. I mean, he showed up in my neighborhood recently for a listening session.
Good.
And on that note, you said senator by accident, but his seat is now up for grabs.
That's right.
That and 16 other legislative seats on November 4th. And so really, if you're out there listening, there's a lot of elections happening. Those 17 seats. Their school board elections, various local seats like coroner, etc. And you just need to go to y'allvote.ms, plug in your address, and see if you have an election.
Gotcha.
That's the best advice I can give you because it is kind of hodgepodge. But as you preach on your show, voting is so important.
Absolutely.
And not enough people vote.
Right.
And if you're one of those people, after you check to see if you have an election and if you look at your calendar, man, I'm going to be out of town on Election Day. Clerk's offices across the state are open beginning tomorrow all the way through next week and then next Saturday as well for you to cast an in-person absentee ballot.
Yep.
You have 2 weekend opportunities to get it done. And really, it's not terribly difficult to vote. It's not. If you're out of town, if you're 65 or older, if you live with a disability, there's a long list of reasons that you can actually vote early.
It's excuse-based.
Yeah. And then, of course, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesday, November 4th.
November 4th.
But these are the people who are going to the Capitol come January to fill those seats.
Totally
17 of them. So it's big that people get out and vote.
All right, we got Leah Smith on the program at 12:05. She's the General Counsel, VP for Policy and Advocacy for the Mississippi Hospital Association. You got some news that's kind of related to that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and she's going to come on and talk about a lot of other stuff as well. Yeah. But the study that we recently reported on, it was done in partnership with the CDC and a nonprofit Trust for America's Health. And it shows, honestly, that the nation's waistline is getting skinnier.
Good.
Mississippi's is not. That's the bad news. That's the bad news. For the first time in over a decade, the number of states with obesity rates below 35% has dropped. 19 states had rates higher than that number. The rest were lower. Mississippi was second to last. Over 40% of adults struggle with obesity.
All right, before you go, football this weekend.
It's a big weekend. High school tonight, 19 games through the SuperTalk networks. And then Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Southern Miss, JSU, everyone else will be covering at supertalk.fm.
Real quick, who's the Mississippi connection to this betting scandal?
Oh, you got to go read about it at supertalk.fm. But it's a guy from Bassfield, Marv's Fairley. And apparently he knows all these NBA players, was helping rig the games, make money. That's a big story. You look hard enough, you find a Mississippi connection, Gerard.
J.T. Mitchell, News Director, SuperTalk Mississippi News. Coming right back. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on
SuperTalk Mississippi.
So I just wanted to follow up with JT. Appreciate him coming in, of course. And it is true. The news department does a great job. And we certainly are grateful to them. And sign up for the newsletter. It's a good way to get, if you've been unable to keep up with a lot of the news across the state, it's all compact in that newsletter, easy to drill down into the stories. But I did have a chance to talk to the mayor of Jackson 20 minutes or so after the big Catholic Charities event, the Journey of Hope event. We appreciate him attending that. And, I mean, it's a fire hose, right? He's been mayor for a short 3.5 months, as JT pointed out. But I think it's because the previous mayor was an ideologue. And if you follow what I'm saying here, when you're in elected office,
you're going to say he was an idiot.
No,
I mean, I would agree with you.
Well, how about an idiotic ideologue? How about that?
There you go.
But you know what I'm saying here? He wasn't really interested in solving problems. He didn't even want to admit there were any. Right? He was more interested in himself. And there's folks out there probably listening that'll tell him, I don't care. This is just my opinion and analysis and observation. More interested in himself, media attention that you talk about all the time, and kind of how that projected, rather than, hey, guys, here are the problems, and here's what we're going to do to fix them. That's what people want to hear. And that's what I'll give it to Mayor Horn. He's run into the fire, as they say.
According to federal indictments, it appears he was trying to enrich himself as well.
Correct. That almost goes hand in hand with someone like that doesn't have any interest in actually discharging the duties they were sworn to take on. And that's why the problems festered, and they ignored them. Much like what happens in all the Democrat-run cities in this country. We don't have a crime problem here in Chicago and Memphis and New Orleans. What are you talking about there? Seattle, President Trump? We don't need no stinking National Guard. We got this. No, you don't. And like I said, you guys missed the memo. That's your core, fundamental, number one primary responsibility. It's called safety. Isn't that like ingrained in us in humans? Is protection of your life? That's like top of the list. And any threat to it, your human instincts take over. And that's what's happening here. It's honestly, and so the people are saying, wow, city's never been so safe. You can actually walk around. And it's so depressing and really just, it's a subject for disappointment that these great cities have been reduced to being in the control of these criminals, playing shoot 'em up all over the place, stealing property. And then they wonder why folks are poor and why they're running out of money. And sadly, New York City, America's largest, is about to elect a freaking Marxist communist at the helm. It's a bad thing when Cuomo is the best is the best alternative. They had a debate. You probably saw that the other night. What a dang disaster that was for all of them, in my view. Cuomo can't debate. He's terrible. And Mondami is just smiles, doesn't say anything, pauses a lot, and he's just full of a bunch of nonsensical rhetoric like, what did he just say there? And I'm just going to gimme. And by the way, now he's scheming up. Have you seen this? They pay city, municipal property taxes, quite onerous, by the way, on top of outrageous state and county taxes, and county property taxes in New York. We've discussed that before. Ridiculous. Makes your tax bill higher than your mortgage in some cases. But in New York City, they also tax property. It's a source of revenue for the city. He's coming up with some scheme, have you seen this, that's going to tax the white neighborhoods more than what they deem to be the minority neighborhoods. Of course he's going to do that because he's a Marxist. And what do Marxists do? Divide people into buckets. Economically, was the original kind of tenet of Marxism. It was an economic dividing mechanism. And now it's, of course, on critical race theory, which is based largely on the original Marxist tenets of economic division based on race and physical attributes. And this guy's going to carry that into the city of New York. How's that going to work out?
I'm of two minds. Either he's going to actually convince I forget what the body is that is in charge of all that, the assembly?
That's right, yes.
He's either going to convince the assembly to go along with him, or he's going to butt heads with him, and then it comes down to, do his supporters blame anybody else, or do they get angry at him for not delivering on his promises?
Totally true. That's right. The state, much of what, and look, Cuomo's even pointed that out, because he was a member of the assembly. He was like a no-show, meaning he was very ineffective, right, as a member. I don't think he passed the bill. I think it was
mentioned it was either the debate or a press conference since the debate that he missed 80% of the votes.
Right, he doesn't even show up. Right. So he knows good and well he can't do these things without authority, without law passed in the New York State Capitol, the Assembly. But yet he's still promising, and it's just mind-blowing to me that, like a Pied Piper, following just unwitting people that don't seem to understand, what he wants to do is tear down, as I said earlier, the very thing that provided all these riches we have. Relative to the rest of the world, it ain't even close. And that's what he wants to do. It's incredible that that's going on, but that's exactly where we are. Man, oh man, we'll see what happened. We got Leah Smith coming in at 12:05, and we're going to talk about this healthcare stuff some more. There are some alternatives based on what we were discussing earlier. There's plenty of them, to the Affordable Care Act, some things I think we should change, and we discussed those earlier. Let's talk a bit about the Social Security cost of living adjustment. I know we have folks out there that rely on Social Security benefits in their retirement years or getting close. The cost of living adjustment, as prescribed by law on Social Security, is based on the Consumer Price Index increase over a year. And so next year there will be a 2.8% cost of living adjustment to Social Security. The COLA, as it is called, cost of living adjustment, the acronym, has averaged about 3.1% over the last decade. It was 2.5% in 25. It's going to be 2.8% because inflation's a little higher this year than it was in approaching 25 or 24 over 23 is the way that would work out. So that's where we are. You can expect that. That's what's going on. I'm still super pumped, by the way, about this quantum computing breakthrough. I think that the promise of quantum computing producing real tangible benefit is closer than we once thought, and I really think that's good. And even industry analysts are all over that.
Yeah, there's a technical term for the innovation per capita, but I can't seem to find it. But when you look at American innovation per capita versus Chinese innovation per capita, it looks like we're winning by a large margin. Then you got to remember there's over 1 billion people in China, so even if they have a lower rate of innovation, they can afford to throw people at it and come close to our level of innovation if we were to stop.
And they do. They absolutely do. There's no limit to what they will do in that respect. So, yeah, that's a problem, no doubt. This No Kings protest, this actually exposes, I'm sad to say, the worst of the worst in our country. It's really kind of disgusting. But there's video footage of some of these nutcases. And, of course, true to form, they've got multiple piercings of their skin and head, the gigantic glasses and the dumb hair and hats and all this sort of stuff that is almost like a uniform to these people.
It's the uniform of nonconformity.
That's what it is. So they're, throughout these protests, explicitly calling for violence. And this is a problem. So many were calling for, of course, the assassination of the president. there's video footage taken in Seattle that says, where there are a couple of these protesters that state, would you like to kill Nazis with me? Asked who they define as a Nazi, they respond, Stephen Miller, of course, policy advisor to the president. He's a Nazi. You know, throwing around the term Nazi in such a cavalier and casual fashion is despicable unto itself. To compare Stephen Miller to Nazi Germany? Unbelievable. Stepping aside for a break, coming right back.
Poly up a
You know what that means.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
We'll do it live.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We appreciate you joining us. CC in Senatobia says, well, if the United States simply owes itself, there's no debt, no such thing as being in debt to yourself. CC, let me explain. Yourself, I'm talking about the people in this country. I don't mean the government. Most of the debt that is actually held by the public. About $38 trillion of the total debt, $7 trillion of it or so is intergovernmental debt, meaning it's government agencies that owe each other. The largest there is Social Security, about $2.5 trillion. And then there's other pension plans and other funds that's just intergovernmental. So in the case of Social Security, it's the Treasury owes Social Security. Those bonds are redeemed every single day. Principal and interest is paid. It's one of the ways that Social Security generates revenue to pay benefits. It gets interest from the money it loans to the federal government. All the rest of that debt is held by another $7 trillion or so, held by foreign nations. Japan tops that list, owns about $1.1 trillion of the total 38. And then the rest of it is held by individuals. Me. I've got Treasury securities, institutional investors, retirement systems, such as the Mississippi Public Employees Retirement System, owns Treasury securities, debt, banks. So that's what I mean, CC. Not that the government owes the government ourselves, meaning us collectively as a nation. Does that make sense there? Okay. So I just want to clarify that. We actually do owe, and yes, the federal government does pay interest on those holdings, those Treasury bills, notes, bonds, pays interest, and it redeems and pays the principal when those bills, notes, bonds mature, when they hit their expiration date. And that's what I mean by if we get to a point where the investors, individuals, public employees retirement systems across all 50 states, banks, financial institutions, investors, etc., say, hey, look, we're a little worried about the United States' financial condition here. Therefore, we're not going to loan them any money. It's no different than your bank making a decision on loaning to a consumer money. Well, we're looking at your credit scores, your credit history, your current financial situation, the income generated. We don't think you can pay this debt back, therefore you're declined. Same deal. And when the Department of Treasury goes out to auction off these Treasury bills, notes, bonds, as they do on a cyclical basis, if the market says, yeah, I don't know, guys, you're looking a little frothy there, United States. You want me to buy your debt? I'm going to have to get a better return. That's what spikes yields, because they have to sell it at a bigger discount. Thus, the yield increases, goes in a different direction from the price of the actual security, and that becomes concerning and problematic. Usually, foretells a recession and also means our debt cost goes up. Got to pay more to get people to buy it. So that's kind of what's going on there. Who do these companies sell their products if no one has any money because AI replaced a third of the workforce, says Blake in the Delta? Quite the opposite, Blake. People will be flush wealthy because machines and computers and systems will be doing the work that humans once did at a far more efficient clip, and that generates wealth. The only way to generate wealth is productivity. The more we produce per person, per hour, wealth is created. So if you think about, just think about the evolution of humans since we've inhabited the planet, from what humans could produce 100 years ago relative to what they can produce today. Way more than they could then because of all these technology innovations, all the tools, and just simple, everyday type tools. I'm not talking about computers and AI and sophisticated stuff like that, but that's how wealth is created.
And that's another historical point on the need for safety for a thriving society.
Absolutely, 100%
when you look
true.
at that line dip back down in innovation, it's when society was crumbling historically.
That's absolutely right.
When you're afraid for your life and your livelihood, you're much less focused on building a better tomorrow.
Completely true. Because your human instinct is, well, first I got to be safe. I can't go focus on doing something great and producing for society.
I mean, they had running water in Rome, and then how long after Rome fell did we get running water again?
It's true. That's a good point. What's your thoughts of flooding the markets with foreign beef and thoughts on bailing out Argentina for around $40 billion? I have questions about those policies. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I understand the president's goal there. He's trying to drive the price of beef down. I'm concerned about America's cattle farmers and how it affects them, though. All right, it's time for a break. Fox News, SuperTalk News. When we come back, it's Leah Smith with the Mississippi Hospital Association.
Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are coming at you live from the Element Well studio on this
Friday, y'all.
You know, just listening to the great Steve Perry, of course, my favorite. Everybody knows that. Bumping us in, Rhino. I still have fun going out there and watching the reaction videos from the young folks. And, like, they'll crank that stuff like that up. Like, who is this guy? Never heard that. Before auto-tune, as you and I like to talk about. It's our pleasure to welcome now Leah Smith, General Counsel and Vice President for Policy and Advocacy for the Mississippi Hospital Association. Leah, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
I'm so glad to be here. I always love coming to talk to you.
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate it. So, let's kick it off by talking about Medicare, which is not as straightforward and easy to understand as many believe it is. It is a tangled web. It wasn't supposed to be that way, but with the advent of Medicare Advantage and Medicare supplemental policies, it's not like, and of course we got Part D that came into effect many years ago. It's the prescription drug coverage.
That's right.
You got these Part A, B, C, D. It's complicated, and folks that aren't insurance experts, they need some help, and you guys are trying to educate people.
That's right. That's right. We've got a public information campaign going that's really aimed at patients and what patients need. We also have concerns from a hospital perspective, but, you know, Medicare is a complicated program. We have about 640,000 Mississippians that are on Medicare. 57% of those are on traditional Medicare, which is the federal government-run program, and about 43% are on Medicare Advantage, which is a little lower than nationwide, which is at about 50%, which is interesting. I actually didn't know that before I studied up for today.
I didn't know that. Advantage, of course, considered Part C,
That's
right,
correct.
of Medicare, and explain that to the folks. Basically, it's a private policy that has a bunch of stuff added to traditional Medicare.
That's right.
And you deal with the private carrier. Explain.
So we've got 4 parts to Medicare. Part A is really inpatient hospitalizations, skilled nursing, and some home health. Part B is outpatient and your doctor's visits, those sorts of things. Part C is your private plans, which usually combine Parts A and B and maybe add a service or like vision or dental that is not covered by traditional Medicare, which many people don't know that. Medicare, traditional Medicare covers medically necessary services. It does not cover routine dental, routine vision, which I consider to be very important in my life.
Sure.
It doesn't cover hearing. It doesn't cover long-term care. So it doesn't cover certain services that sometimes Medicare Advantage will cover, although there are potential downsides. And then Part D, as you said, covers drug coverage.
Yeah. And originally, as I recall, it was just Part B, I believe, is hospitalization, right?
That's
Did I get it backwards? Is it A and B? One is normal clinical, sort of outpatient primary
B
care.
B is your outpatient, and A is your inpatient.
A is an inpatient.
That's
okay.
correct.
All
And,
right.
and
So,
you know, it's a common misconception. We were talking about this off air, but a lot of people think you pay nothing for Medicare, and that is not true.
one of the parts, the A, right?
So Part A, some people do not pay a premium,
right,
but they have a deductible. Medicare is an income-driven plan, and so if you are a high-income earner, you're going to pay a lot more. And it's a mandatory transition. So when you turn 65 or you leave employment and lose your employer coverage, you have to transition to Medicare.
Right.
And if you don't, there are penalties.
Yeah.
And they're lifelong.
Like catch-up penalties.
And they're intense. I mean, they're like 10% of premium payments for every year you missed for your entire life.
Yeah.
So you have to watch out. When you start to turn 63, 64, you need to start looking out for when you need to enroll. And I think people don't know that. And they don't know what it covers, and they don't know what it doesn't. And they don't know that if you enroll, for example, in traditional Medicare, you might need to get a supplemental policy called Medigap that will help you with your co-pays, some of your deductibles, so it's not so expensive. And then you can add on to those with vision or dental or whatever you might need.
Yeah. So the Hospital Association's position on this, and I know you don't want to advise people on you should buy this policy versus that policy and this coverage, and I get that. But a person is approaching retirement, right? And they are looking at enrolling in Medicare. Should they talk to like local professionals to help guide them through that process?
Absolutely. And you know, one of the best things about Mississippi, and I was talking to a colleague about this yesterday who ran a local hospital field down in Southwest Mississippi. One of the best things is that we can go to church and run into one of our providers. So it's great. I mean, you have access to people who really do want to help you. You don't have to call a big insurance company that might be out of state and ask them for information. You can literally talk to your neighbors and your friends, and your local hospital is going to know almost everyone in town. So the most important thing is to talk to your provider about what is covered. So oftentimes, even though a Medicare Advantage plan might have bundled coverage that seems easier, it might have a lower premium, so your upfront costs are lower. Sometimes your out-of-pocket costs are going to be higher. Your provider networks are going to be slimmer. Yeah. So someone that you're used to seeing, you may not be able to see anymore because they might be out of network. They oftentimes have stringent prior authorization requirements. And even though we have a prior authorization law here in Mississippi that is pretty robust, federal preemption, sometimes those plans get around those prior authorization requirements that we have in the state. So you want to watch out for that. And separately, just while we're on Medicare Advantage, there is some devaluation for our critical access hospitals, payments to those hospitals under Medicare Advantage.
Okay.
So those hospitals are 25 or less inpatient beds. They are cost reimbursed, so they are made whole. So even if Medicare is giving them a per diem throughout the year, when their cost reports come in, they'll true up those payments.
Gotcha.
That does not happen with Medicare Advantage. So sometimes our critical access hospitals are shorted, which is a problem because they're caring for aging populations.
Which typically require more medical services, and that's more cost.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so what we tell people is when you get your statement back every year and it tells you how your plan is changing, you need to take a a look at that. So don't ignore that. Make sure you call your provider and talk to them about that. Make sure you consider your budget and what you can afford on the front end and on the back end. That's really important. So just doing your research and not simply looking at advertisements.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I'm dealing with my parents, is making sure they're not seeing something on TV or getting a phone call and maybe becoming confused about that coverage. I mean, I would probably get confused and need some help looking at that. And so it's certainly something I'm talking to my parents about.
I think the latest research I did, United Healthcare, Humana seem to be the largest providers of Medicare Advantage program.
I was shocked to learn that it had really the market had consolidated
a bunch.
It's like 47% of the market is Humana and United.
Yeah, UHC.
And that's part of the problem with the networks.
Yeah.
One of the things we have advocated for, and AHA, the American Hospital Association, has advocated for, is just looking at those networks and expanding them through federal law, making sure that Medicare Advantage programs are being audited properly, making sure we're gathering the same kind of data from those programs that we are from traditional Medicare, and better aligning those prior authorization requirements.
Yeah.
Because as you know, prior authorization is problematic. If you aren't allowed to receive the care that you need when you need it, that can really be damaging to your health.
And the good physicians, as you know, will spend a lot of time working that on behalf of their patients get that prior authorization. So, because they know the time is of the essence to get them the treatment they need.
And that's a big problem with plans in general, is the regulatory burdens, the administrative burdens. If physicians are spending all that time trying to work around those requirements, they're not spending time with you.
Now, I would assume that all of your members, except Medicare, as far as hospitals are concerned, right?
That's right.
And maybe you've got some specialty hospitals or boutique-type hospitals that perhaps don't, I guess. I don't know if we have any in Mississippi, though, but you see them in the some of the larger metro areas.
Yeah, I would say that most of our members are going to accept Medicare. Most of our payers across our members are government sources.
Yeah.
So it's either going to be Medicare or Medicaid.
Yeah.
If you're a children's hospital or something like that, where you're treating a subsect of the population that really doesn't have a Medicare plan, that might be different. But no, most of our members are reliant on Medicare.
So what was the figure? Medicare enrollees in Mississippi?
Medicare enrollees is at about 640,000.
I'm shocked at that. It's huge. I haven't looked at that. Now, I know it's 45, 50 million nationwide, I believe, on Medicare.
It's huge, and it's growing. I mean, demographics are shifting, and we are becoming a more aged population.
Yeah. That's incredible. All right, if you can hang around, we're going to keep talking.
Absolutely.
We got Leah Smith here with the Mississippi Hospital Association. We're coming right back.
Hey, this is Bob.
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. Leah Smith, General Counsel, VP for Policy and Advocacy, Mississippi Hospital Association, is our guest. All right, so I think we covered the Medicare gambit. I think the main thing is when you get to that point, get some help, right? There are plenty of folks that can help you.
And I've got some resources that I can share. Medicare.gov is a good resource.
Yeah.
In the state, we've got the State Health Insurance Assistance Program. It's short name SHIP. It's run by the Mississippi Department of Human Services, and it's mostly volunteers, but you can call 1-844-822-4622, and that's 8 to 5, and they can help you navigate plans. On the MHA website, it's www.mhanet.org. You navigate to resources and then navigate to the last tab, which is Medicare, and there is actually a checklist that you can use. So when you are going through this enrollment period, which, by the way, started October 15th and runs through December 1st, December 7th. December 1st.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Am I right about that?
I think that's right.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
December 7th. I'm sorry.
Okay.
There's a different enrollment period for the ACA Marketplace. So just through December 7th, you can enroll in your Medicare, and we've got a checklist on our website that you can run through with your provider that you can look at whatever you need to look at to make good decisions.
Right around the corner.
Yep.
And, of course, the other thing that's around the corner, you just alluded to it, is open enrollment in the ACA marketplaces.
That's right.
That's coming up November 1st.
That's right, and that runs through January 15th.
Oh, man. So the concern, of course, that we want to dig into is that the Biden administration passed in the American Rescue Plan enhancements, increased the subsidies in the structure of the subsidies. Premium tax credits, as they are known, were temporary, extended those in the Inflation Reduction Act, scheduled to expire the end of this year. That's at the heart of this government shutdown. And if those aren't extended, and really, I think we're at a point, Leah, probably that even if they had a breakthrough in the next few days, I'm not sure the industry could inform people, okay, everything's back on the way it was. I'm thinking people on November 1st are going to get notifications of precipitous rises in their premiums.
So they're already receiving those notices, and they've already submitted their rates, and it looks like across the nation they're requesting 18%, but I think here in Mississippi it's between 20 and 40%.
One of the most severe.
I mean, it's going to be very high and really unsustainable. And part of the reason for that is if the subsidies are not extended, then there will be less people, presumably, that are getting coverage. Probably healthier people are going to come off of it. Because I know if I were 24, 25, or 26 and I was healthy and I thought I don't really need this, I probably wouldn't get it, right?
Yep.
So they're going to come off. So the risk pool is going to be higher. And so those insurance companies are trying to account for their profit margin.
Sure.
And looking at the risk pool and saying this is going to be riskier and we're going to have to increase costs. And they're also looking, I think, at other things like drug costs and chronic disease rates and utilization. Utilization is up post-pandemic, and while that's a really good thing, we want people to go to the doctor. We had a decrease for a while, and that doesn't cost as much. And now people are using their health insurance. So
and also a decrease during the pandemic period of the various tests and screening procedures.
That's right.
And now that's starting to manifest where illnesses are being discovered at a later date than they would have if folks have been screened, and that costs more money to deal with.
That's right. I mean, I think there are so many residual implications of the pandemic, and I was thinking about talking about this on the way over here. It's been 5 years, which is shocking.
I know.
And I almost felt silly bringing up the pandemic today, right? Like,
but we're still
post-pandemic utilization is up, but it's true.
Lingering effects.
I mean, people didn't want to go into the hospitals. They didn't want to see their doctors. They wanted to stay at home where it was safe. And they were worried about coming back for a long time. And many things were not caught during that time. So we're kind of playing catch up, and we're going to be doing that for a long time.
Well, the other thing that happened, and get your take on this, because you work with the people that were most affected by this, is just the medical professionals and so many who had all sorts of opportunities to leave and be part of these traveling teams and unbelievable compensation for that. many after the pandemic said, you know what, I'm burnt out. I'm going to go do something else. And that's created shortages, right? We have lots of beds in hospitals in Mississippi that can't be used because they're not, as they describe them, as staffed, right? We don't have the medical professionals to.
That's true. I mean, things are definitely much better than they were during the pandemic and right after. But the economy around healthcare, the healthcare workspace it's just completely different. And we're trying to make changes related to that. For example, introducing virtual nursing programs so that our nurses feel less burned out and have more time and are shifting responsibilities. But man, people are still tired from what was going on during the pandemic, and we have not seen some areas recover. I mean, some healthcare areas are still very short. And we're working on that in Mississippi. We've got some programs that we're working on. But yes, I think health professional shortages are definitely accounting for increases in premiums for the EPTC and the marketplace plans, and also for private plans. Private plans are going up.
Well, the good news is if you're considering a career in healthcare, you can get pretty good compensation just because of the old dynamics of demand and supply.
That's right. And you can go wherever you want.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I think there's such freedom in that. You know, we want them to stay in Mississippi, and we're working on that every day. But even within Mississippi, you can go wherever you want and get a job.
All right, so we've got the ACA enhanced subsidies scheduled to expire, and if they do, Kaiser Family Foundation estimates about 70,000 of the 340,000 who are enrolled in the exchanges would, as you say, drop their coverage. The fear is many of those would be the low-cost, healthier folks, younger folks, and that would probably – so I've seen a report, Leah, that says – that the increase in premiums is mostly due to those dynamics as opposed to the subsidies, right?
I've heard that too.
Yeah,
I've seen that too. I mean, they're just accounting for their risk pool, right? And I think, at the individual level, the impact is so big. I found this example that I thought was really good because sometimes it's hard to imagine, okay, what's the federal poverty level and how does that really impact someone? But for a 27-year-old who's making $35,000 a year, which is actually 224% of the federal poverty level.
Okay, right in the middle.
It's still not a lot of money.
Right.
With the subsidies, they would pay about $1,000 a year, and without, they're going to pay about $2,600. And that's for like a silver plan, so a medium plan. Road. That's right. And so, I mean, we're talking about huge increases. That's an 153% increase. And for a young person or a person who's working construction or whatever, really, that's not very far off from a teacher. That's a lot of money. And they're going to be on the state health plan, but even private plans are going up. I saw increases of 6% this year, which is the most that it's been in 15 years. So health insurance is very expensive.
It is, and I know I point this out all the time. A lot of people point to the health insurance companies as, well, they're just making more money and gouging us and all that kind of stuff. But when you look at their financial statements, they're not terribly profitable relative to other industries. And I'm not defending insurance companies here. I'm just sharing financial facts. But the other thing is we have what's called the medical loss ratio. So by law, which was part of the ACA when it passed, they have to pay out 80% of what they collect in premiums has to be paid out in claims. And if they don't, they got to rebate folks.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's not all on insurance companies. There are other factors, too, like drug costs.
Sure.
I mean, I was looking at the impact of GLP-1s. Weight loss drugs. And while those have a really great impact in the long haul, they're very expensive.
In the short term, still got to pay for it.
Sure. And it's causing insurance premiums to rise. So we have to balance what happens on the back end with patients, which will probably be positive on the front end with the cost of that drug. And it's just increasing. They're increasing costs.
What's on your radar with respect to the Hospital Association for the upcoming legislative session? What are you guys thinking about?
Well, we've got so many things that are in flux right now because of OB3, the big, beautiful bill, HR1 that passed. I know we've talked about that. Lots of changes on the horizon to our state-directed payment program, which is the program that allows hospitals to really cover up uncompensated care by taxing themselves and pulling down Medicaid money from the federal government. government. So, we're kind of just in wait-and-see mode.
Okay.
And we just want to kind of hold the line while we see what happens with the subsidies and with MHAP, and hope there are no more hits. Because it's been a little bit of a rough year for hospitals. I
get it. I see the same thing. Many are underwater from a cash flow perspective across the country.
We're okay right now in Mississippi.
Okay.
But, there's trouble on the horizon, and we want to prepare for that. We want to be conservative and smart and prepare now.
100%. Leah Smith, General Counsel and VP for Policy and Advocacy at the Mississippi Hospital Association. Appreciate you coming on,
Thank
Leah.
you. I appreciate you.
Yep. We're coming right back with half an hour of midday. Stay with us.
From this Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Love is a burning thing, and it makes a fiery ring. Bound by wild desire, I fell into a ring of fire. I fell into a burning ring.
There you go, Ring of Four. This just in, Rhino. Hakeem Jeffries. He has just announced his endorsement for the Marxist candidate for mayor. You knew that was coming. He, of course, Jeffries, from the Empire State of New York. This is terrible. It bothers me. I know a lot of people say, I don't care, it's New York's up, it's up there, and we're here, and all that kind of stuff.
Was it a written endorsement, or did you do like a video or something? Because if we did a video, I'm not even going to watch that video. I'm going to wait till we get the sombrero version.
That's right. Not only that, Hakeem Jeffries has a bit of a reputation for making videos pronouncing something one day and saying something totally the opposite the next. Oh, wait, a video? It doesn't matter what I say. I'm on video, right? That's to your point of just looking for attention. So he, of course, is Hakeem Jeffries, a Brooklyn Democrat. So this one is a little more meaningful than most endorsements. I think Zoran Mondani is going to cruise to victory in the Big Apple. This is the other head scratcher, and I suspect lots of folks out there would share my viewpoint on this. I saw a poll that said like 34% of the Jewish population of New York supports this guy. What the hell's up with that? I can't figure that out. Why are Jewish people supporting a person who pretty clearly fields an opinion that's consistent with radical Muslims in this world that want to annihilate the Jews?
Considering it's a minority of the Jewish population, I would guess it's the sunk cost fallacy. They've just spent so much of their wealth on Democrat candidates that they can't bring themselves to not.
I don't get it. It just would appear to me that every Jewish person in this country should be a Republican, should support Republican candidates, because the Democrats, are they looking out for them, for the Jews? No. In fact, have you ever seen them condemn the various protests across this country, the anti-Semitic protests across this country? Heck, when they brought the presidents of the august Ivy League in MIT University, the Democrats wouldn't call them out for allowing these anti-Semitic activities on their campus, blocking Jewish students to get to their classes.
Yeah, the last time the Democrats even acted like they cared about the Jewish population of America was when there was a sudden uptick in violence towards Jewish Americans. until they started figuring out who was doing the attacking. It was kind of like the Stop Asian Hate stuff. They were all about stopping Asian hate until they discovered who was attacking the Asians.
That's exactly right. I can't reconcile it. I can't make it fit in my head that these Jewish people are supporting this guy who clearly demonstrates.
Well, in the year of our Lord 2025, if you're still voting Democrat, you have a screw loose. So you're trying to apply reason and logic to a brain that is not capable of it.
That's totally true. I agree. Well, I don't know. It's a concern, and I'm concerned that this guy's going to get elected, and I'm concerned that there's so many young people in this country that have embraced what he stands for. And again, I like to call it, it's not socialism they support, it's what I call transferism. They want the monetary benefits of socialism. That is, if you're on the receiving end of it, but they don't want to lose. They don't want to cede the freedoms that socialism can obstruct, and it does obstruct freedoms because it's more government dictate, mandate, control, orders.
Well, also because the vast majority of those that believe in it are lost in la-la land. They've convinced themselves that, well, no, I won't have to dig ditches under socialism. I'll get to write slam poetry for my cats and have a six-figure income.
That is a good point. They truly do believe that. You're right. And if you said, no, you're going to have to put a little elbow grease out there. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to sacrifice. Although I'm encouraged by reports I'm seeing, brings me back to the old days. This artificial intelligence and quantum computing race, you've seen this. There are reports of folks working 100-hour weeks. Now, I'm not saying everybody ought to go out and work 100-hour weeks, but it's voluntary. These are people who are in a race, feel the pressure of that, trying to be first to market, trying to get their stuff out there and produce income from it, and they're burning the midnight oil. That's like the old days, man. That's young people we're talking about here. So I actually find that encouraging. It's a little different than our friends over in Europe who actually take more time off than they work. And then they wonder why everything that gets invented that has a sweeping effect across the globe comes out of this country. That's because your butt's out on vacation. You're not working. You don't understand why you're not producing anything. And if you don't think that so much of what we enjoy today, or certainly even the predecessing technology that provided the foundation for much of what we enjoy today, it came about because people were working these crazy hours all day, all night. In the early days of Microsoft, I remember that they kind of set it up where you lived and worked in the building. Remember that? They still do have grocery shoppers and take care of your pets and clinics on site and everything right there. You don't have to leave the building. Just please produce this product. And that strategy worked pretty well. Almost commune-like. But they had fun. I mean, they communicated, collaborated. Contrast that to go home and work on Zoom. You just can't produce as much. You can't convince me that you can produce as much, especially when you're creating something that does require a multitude of skills that one person does not possess. You've got to work with other people. And when they're doing that and they're burning the midnight oil, meanwhile, over there in France, if you send an email after 5, they take you to jail. Oh, man. So get out of the way, government. That's the point. Get out of the way, and people will produce great things, and we're seeing that. Let's see what we got on the C Spire text line. Mo says Mondami needs to be elected. Young voters need to see what the results of the policies they support are. That could be the death knell to the socialist wing of the party. You could be right, Mose. Now, I'm still of the opinion that much of what he wants to do, he won't be able to get done. Because it does require, as you were talking about, it does require law being passed in Albany there, in the state capital, by the assembly, signed into law by the governor. So I think a lot of it's a pipe dream that he's using to sweep himself into office there. It's the old, just promise, forget about making good on those. But rent control never worked. And that's got to go through all kinds of...
It's been tried like 4 different times in New York, and it's been a failure all 4 times.
They have like a rent board or something, do they not? I believe. And
I think the most recent attempt was under de Blasio.
Of course. What a wacko that guy was. And then the free buses, which and subways and all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, restructuring property taxes to ensure that the white property owners shoulder a higher percentage of the tax bill there. So this guy is just really devious in my view. But I hear you, Mose, and maybe that would turn things around.
Well, I mean, there are some that believe he's being intentionally devious.
I agree with that.
There are some that believe his goal is not necessarily socialism, Marxism, or communism, that it's more a religious goal.
Okay.
Because of the radical Islamic tenet of, what is it, Tayyik or Taqi or whatever it is. It's basically you can lie and say whatever to an infidel in order to further the goals of Islam.
Oh, my gosh. So selective morality, so to speak, depending on who the other party is, right? It's being affected, in this case, harmed by your breach of morals, essentially, is what that is. Hasn't he said in the past that if Benjamin Netanyahu were ever to show up in New York, he'd assassinate him or something crazy like that? Has that been verified?
I think he said he would have him arrested.
Arrested, that's it. Pardon me, but he probably wants him to be assassinated. But arrest him for what?
War crimes.
Oh, okay. So a mayor...
Because that's up to the jurisdiction of New York City.
Right, exactly. Took the words out of my mouth. Right. Oh, but this guy's not drunk on power or anything. Final segment after this break. Stay with us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
All controls before recording.
All systems go. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
In the heart of the night, in the cool southern rain, there's a full moon in sight, shining down on the pocket train. Just like she used to.
That's from the All Hit Request line. Appreciate that, Rhino. That's Poco. Trying to get the house band to take that one out. Great tune. Let's see here. Bill in Grenada says, great guest today. She might, that was, of course, Leah with the Mississippi Hospital Association. She might mention that every Medicare recipient receives numerous phone calls from people trying to sell mainly Medicare Advantage. These unsolicited phone calls are against CMS regulations. I'm an agent in Grenada, and I'll meet dozens of clients each year that I've been enrolled in Medicaid Medicare Advantage by these agents on 800 numbers. People need to be really careful about the phone calls that they answer. I can't make an outbound call to a Medicare prospect without them having given me advance permission to make the call. I didn't know that, Bill. Appreciate you letting us know that. I can certainly see that you get solicitations like this because they've got databases of all these people and they know what their age is, right? And it's a pretty simple piece of information to obtain, and boom, you're a prospect right off the bat. Appreciate you letting us know that, Bill. Good information there. So if you're getting these calls, who should they turn them into, Rhino? The Public Service Commission or some other government agency that they're getting these calls? This is really not a robocall thing. This just apparently, according to Bill here, is against CMS, federal CMS regulations. It's interesting. Philip in Walthall County says Soviets refused to call Germans Nazis since the Soviets were socialists, and instead they said Hitleries. Yeah, there is a difference between National Socialism, what the Nazi acronym stands for, and I guess if you could call it normal socialism, not Nazi. The difference is
historians argue that the moniker of National Socialist was more of false advertising from the Nazis.
Okay.
To attain power.
Okay. But it also had the violent element to it. Nazism did, as opposed to central planning and control, which is the classic definition of socialism. It had these people don't work in the system. We got to exterminate them. Thus the Holocaust, right? So what else we got? Jerry in Waynesboro sent a picture of the markets today, wants to know if it's sustainable. Well, I'm certainly not in the business of providing advice on the stock market, but I'll just say this, Jerry, I feel super optimistic about our future. And I think because we're tearing down regulations, we've got clarity in passing the Working Families Tax Act, also known as the One Big Beautiful Bill, extending permanently the Trump tax cuts and many of the provisions, such as immediate expensing that relate to corporations and businesses. I feel good about it. And then this explosion of artificial intelligence, massive investments being made. Will there be a bubble? I don't personally think so. And it's because the companies that are making these investments are deriving financial benefit from it, producing a profit. This is different than the dot-com bubble of the 90s, where these were a lot of startups that were just an idea that had not been proven, and there was no profit being produced. So I'm pretty optimistic. Randy in Starkville, I'm not saying he's a liar, but Jeffries would stand on a stump and proudly proclaim there was never a tree growing there. That's totally true, Randy. It's a good, certainly a good analogy there. Someone on the C-Spire text line, we're talking about the minorities versus the white folks in New York. Looks like Mondami intends to change the tax treatment based on your race. He said, hell, the whites are the minority. I don't know. Might be in New York. I don't think so, but I hear you. No doubt about it. Let's see. John in Pontotoc, what kind of base? With that kind of base, he doesn't have to persuade many to win, says John. John, I think you'd be surprised at how many people in New York think like you and I do. It's a city of 8 million. They're just outnumbered. So there are more people that think like you and I do, more conservatively, that are strong supporters of capitalism than there are in the state of Mississippi. Unfortunately, there's just more that have just, as Rhino likes, they've just been conditioned to vote Democrat. They don't even know why, honestly. They don't know why. And until it starts to affect them seriously negatively, I don't think they're going to change their position on that. Let's see what else we got here. I heard Hillary was against the construction at the White House. Oh, I'm so tired of all those fools. Trump said he should call it the Monica Lewinsky Ballroom. He's the greatest troll in America. No doubt about it. Thomas in Greenwood says Muslims don't have morals. I think there are some that do. I think the radicals don't. I absolutely agree with you. The problem is the good.
The ones that claim they do will not.
They won't call them out.
Call out the ones.
Completely agree. I am with you on that. Well, we are out of here today. We are back with you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.